Hello everyone, welcome back to another Elegon devlog. I've got so much to share today, so I'm very excited to get into that. I've been working on a lot of systems behind the scenes, a lot of things that I think is actually fairly interesting to talk about. And then I've also got other things for this video that I just want to mention. So I want to get some feedback from you guys, just to understand how you feel about certain ideas that I'm playing around with the game. And then, yeah, I've got a few shout-outs I want to do, and yeah, a few announcements. So, getting straight into it, yes, you did read the title correctly. I've made my game look worse. And what do I mean by that? So, if we just have a look around, the game kind of looks how you're used to seeing it, right? And that's what I'm aiming for. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to notice it. But if you're like me and you look at this game a lot every single day, and you're developing on it, you're going to notice these things. So what am I talking about? Well, for example, if we look off in the very distance, at the moment, because of the client settings, we're not seeing like creatures that are very far off in the distance. And there's a couple of reasons behind that, but it all comes down to, at the end of the day, optimizing my server, so things on the server. So the reason that I don't display enemies that are extremely far away is because if I did that, I would also have to calculate a bunch of things for those enemies, and that obviously invokes a cost on the server. So with the playtest coming up, I've been doing a lot of looking into how things are running on the server, what to expect in terms of like load on the server and like server costs. And yeah, long story short, my costs were quite high. They were quite high. And the reason for that is because I had quite a bit of fancy code running on my server that I thought was absolutely brilliant. And to be honest, this code was pretty good. It was doing a lot of cool things, and it was creating a very nice simulated world, right? But the problem with that is often if you don't make any compromise with you know your world simulation, then you're going to start to rack up costs quickly, right? So when I had tables on my server that were like millions of rows long to store height map data, you know, that's when you want to start thinking about using techniques like chunking and things like that, which we are using at the moment. But then I thought to myself, can I take it one step further? So rather than constantly doing these height map lookups on the server, which is one of the main costs that I was getting, I thought, well, as for right now, we can park that. You know, we've got those systems implemented, but we can park those because, oh, level 6, because if we look at the gameplay right now, we don't really care what height the enemy is at in terms of networking. Like, sure, the client wants to see the enemy on the ground, or if it's a flying enemy, they want to see it at a set height or whatever. But the server doesn't need to be constantly looking that up, right? And, you know, the main reason that you're doing a lot of processing on the server is because you want clients to be in sync. But anyway, long story short, the way that I've tackled this for now is I've still got the code on the server. It's just, you know, it's basically been quite severely lobotomized, so it's not doing anywhere near as much processing as it was. And instead, what I'm doing is on the client, we take the enemies and we're using raycasts now to check where the ground is, and basically setting, like, smoothly interpolating the position of each enemy to the ground every, you know, few seconds or whatever. So this is great because it really helps with my you know, my bank balance when it comes to the server. And even on the clients, it's very inexpensive because we're not using rigid bodies for these enemies. These are all, they're not physics simulated at all, which is exactly, how it should be for this type of game. So that's a huge win there. And doing optimizations like the one there, combined with a few other optimizations that I've made, I've managed to get my server cost down. I've reduced them by 68 times, which is pretty crazy. And that's a combination of, poor optimization previously, and then just implementing a bunch of sort of techniques to get that cost down. So yeah, it's one of those where if the game does look like slightly worse on the client, you kind of have to trade off between client visuals and the server costs. So this was one where for me it was a no-brainer, to where it looks almost identical on the client, but my server costs are almost 70 times lower, right? So that's one big win that we've got there prior to the playtest. And the next thing I've also implemented is variable tick rate on the server. So previously, no matter what state an entity was in, they were always on the same tick rate, which didn't really make like a lot of sense. So now enemies that are doing more idle behavior will be on a much slower tick rate to enemies that are active and engaging with players. So again, that's also contributed to lowering my server costs, which is fantastic. So what else have I been up to? I've also been looking into some features. So I've been looking into adding a day-night cycle to Elegon, and this is something that I have to be very careful about because, this is something that I want to gauge your guys' opinion on, which is balancing stylized graphics versus realism. And I do think that you can have stylized with realistic effects like a day-night cycle. I think they can work together, but you just have to make sure that you get it right, because the last thing you want is like to have half and half and it kind of just doesn't look right. So for now, I was going to show it off in this video, some sort of day-night cycle action, but I've actually held off on that because I'm not happy with the way it's looking. For me, it's looking a little bit too realistic, and that's not the look I'm going for with this game. So it was nice, like all the shadows and everything were reacting to the sun's position or the moon's position, but I wasn't happy with the state it was in. And something that I would love to ask you guys an opinion on is, how do you feel about this? Would you prefer zones to have a set environment with set lighting conditions, and like certain zones be darker and certain zones be more warm like this one, and then maybe you have like colder lighting for cold zones, or maybe you have a desert which is super bright or whatever, or would you prefer the whole world to be on some sort of dynamic day-night cycle system? So yeah, that's something I'd really be interested in hearing your feedback on, because that's just something that I've been looking at, but I'm not exactly like rushing into implementing. So yeah, and then just following on from the optimizations, the server optimizations I've made, if you're on the Discord, you'll know that I've been sort of talking about how my intention is to keep the playtest free and open, right? Anyone that wants to play, test it out, report bugs, that's brilliant. As much as possible, I don't want to paywall that, right? Because I don't feel like the game's in a state where I can realistically charge a subscription cost and feel good about it right now. So I would rather people just come on and hang out and test it out, right? So that's one of my main motivations for keeping server costs low and spending all this time on optimizations, because when you're a small project like I am with Elegon, you can't just throw money at all these problems, right? You need to actually be a bit clever about it and optimize it in a way to where I can support many concurrent players and also be able to afford a roof over my head. So yeah, I think right now we're in a good spot with that. And my server costs are definitely going to be manageable now that I've put that work in, which is brilliant. I will be continuing to monitor it to make sure that everything is nice and optimized. But yeah, I think we're going to still be good for the free playtest. As for how many players, I'm not exactly sure right now. That's something that I'm going to have to monitor, and I'll probably end up, slowly, incrementally increasing over time. But again, that'll be something that I monitor and check the performance on. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about for this video. The only other optimization I've made actually on the server is I've made it so that the server can, because if anyone here is familiar with SpacetimeDB, you'll know that SpacetimeDB can scale to 0, which means that if there's not really anything happening on the server, you're not really going to invoke any cost, right? There's not really going to be any idle processing happening. And I've really sort of embodied that now with the project here. So basically what happens now, and this is super important in the early stages right now, is if no one is on the server will kind of set itself to sleep, and all the entities will stop processing, everything will sort of calm down and stop. And that's great because, that means we're not going to be wasting energy on times when no one's online or things like that. And then when people do come online, the server can instantly wake up. There's no ramp up time or anything. And entity states will continue on from where they should have been. It will remember where it left off. It will know how much time has passed and it will continue. So there's no difference to the player. So that's just another sort of nice optimization that I've made there that I'm, very happy about. Obviously this is not really something that you would really be thinking about if you had a MMO that was already at the release stage and you had players online 24/7. But for myself at this time, this is just a nice little extra little bit of optimization just whilst I'm developing and going into the PTR. So yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about in this video. I do want to say thank you to our latest Patreon, Stout. Thank you so much for the rare tier support. I really appreciate that. It's really nice to see all the support from you guys. Thank you. And yeah, also just looking at the YouTube, I can't believe it, but we're almost on 1,000 subs. That's crazy. I'm pretty sure I started this channel just a few weeks ago. I started sharing this project. So to almost be on 1,000 subs is really insane. I'm so glad that you guys are enjoying following along with this project, and you're as excited about it as I am. Yeah, just once more, if you haven't joined the Discord, feel free to go check that out. I've got a Patreon if you want to support the server costs, but definitely not required. But if you want to help the project, support me a little bit, that would be much appreciated. And then yeah, finally, feel free to wishlist the game on Steam. There'll be a link for that in the description below. But yeah, I think that's everything for today. So thank you for following along. Thank you for checking out this update, and I'll see you in the next one.